fun.
Now, Mr. Hounsom will present information about the new dyslexia laws in Missouri.
So I wanted to introduce this to you and tell you about some work that we will have going forward on dyslexia screening and remediation. Little background, this is a new state statute passed in the spring of 2016 regarding dyslexia in public schools. And the overall law had some pretty broad guidelines, but it indicated that we would address professional development around dyslexia, the screening of students for dyslexia, and the remediation once we identify students with dyslexia. But it didn't come with specific guidelines yet. That was created, the law also created the Legislative Task Force on Dyslexia. And that was made up of legislators, teachers, parents, experts in the field to get together and come up with a list of recommendations to present to DESE about how public schools would address the issue of dyslexia in all of their buildings. So they did that. They came up with a list of recommendations, gave it to DESE. DESE took those recommendations and created a guidance document for all schools in Missouri on the types of things that should be going on in Missouri schools. We have that document, and which brings us to the next step is our planning and implementation of the DESE guidelines on how to handle that. So that's what I want to share with you tonight, a little bit about the steps that we're about to take. First, understanding about dyslexia. A lot of times when we say dyslexia, people think about just reversing letters when you read or reversing numbers, but it's actually a larger issue than that. If you read some of the indicators up there or some of the things that people with dyslexia suffer from, it's really a challenge to reading comprehension and the ability to decode words as you read them. It's neurological in origin, so it does come with the ability almost, we're going to be attempting to basically rewire the brain on how they interpret words and how they decode those. And one of the interesting things is this, it's not thought of as special education with an IEP. In fact, oftentimes, very much part of the dyslexia is that students don't experience struggles in any other areas except this very unique decoding and the ability to read words. So that's what this is attempting to screen, identify, and help with. The three parts that I talked about there, first of all, professional development. As part of the DESE guidance, 2 hours are required yearly for all staff members. And in that training, you'll have an introduction to dyslexia and understanding more about it. Training on literacy and reading interventions designed to help students with dyslexia, and then some training on the screening, monitoring, and classroom supports. Now, the professional development will look different for elementary teachers than it does for middle school, junior high, or high school teachers. So the training will vary based upon the type of interactions that you would have with students and the type of teaching that you would do. Both DESE and RPDC are producing training materials and setting up training sessions that we will tap into. We will certainly utilize the expertise that comes from across the state, but that's most likely how we will deliver the professional development is through DESE and RPDC. The next component was student screening. So there are some requirements. We will be screening all students in grades K through 3 on a yearly basis. We will screen above K3. We will screen those students who we are seeing difficulties in the area of reading comprehension, and decoding. And the screening must meet some pretty specific requirements. The screening is different at every grade level. For instance, at grade 3, we would screen more heavily for reading comprehension than we would at grade 1 because of the appropriateness for the age of the child. But what I've listed up there are some of the different areas that are required at various grade levels that the screening instrument we choose has to assess. So we will be looking at screening instruments that we're already using within the district. We'll be looking at, DESE did provide a list of the types of screening tools we should look for, including an example of ones that they think are good. It's not an exhaustive list. But any screening that we do within the district will need to make sure that we can measure all of the required areas at each grade level. The last prong on that was remediation, and I've listed several bullet areas up here of different aspects of remediation that we'll be looking at, from our overall instructional approach to individual accommodations, the role that technology will play in working with kids, the social-emotional issues, and the implications that this will have across all subject areas that students are in, not just reading. Obviously, the ability to read is a key indicator of success in every subject area that we teach in school. So unlocking success across the curriculum, how this might help. So our first steps. Right now, we do have screening instruments in place and remediation for students with dyslexia at the elementary level. We do not screen currently every student's K through 3. We screen now those who appear to be ones most likely in need of screening. This will affect some of the things that we do in the district. What screening instruments we use now, frankly, may be too extensive to use with 300 students in the time that it takes to give them. So we will need to look at some different options that meet all of the criteria, are valid and reliable, but that we have the ability to give to 300 students at a time per grade level across the district. We are going to begin our district planning and putting our formal plan in place at the elementary level. So I've scheduled meetings with elementary principals and with Dr. Reed. This is not a special education issue, but they have some expertise that they'll be able to help regular classroom teachers with, and I think they will play a role. We're going to make sure we understand everything that's in the DESE guidance, take an inventory of our current practices within the district, see what still fits and what needs to change, and figure out what it is we need to do next. I meet with a group of assistant superintendents that work in the curriculum area. We are meeting next Friday, actually, here in Rolla. And this is one of the topics of discussion for our meeting next week, is to find out how everyone is handling this and the steps that they're going through. This could impact our future curriculum and future textbook adoption issues, making sure that we put something in teachers' hands that's easy to use. And this will grow into then a full district implementation, grades K all the way up through the high school. So we will need a plan in place to assist kids all throughout the entire district. I tried to get a sense of kind of the percent of kids that experience dyslexia, to get an idea about how big, how many students we're talking here. Of course, estimates vary, but from the numbers that I saw, if we were to apply the basic percentages of the population as a whole to our current grade levels, we would be talking about 30 to 40 kids per 300 student grade level. And so if we have 300 kids in a grade level, we would be looking at 10 to 15% of them probably needing some form of dyslexia remediation along the way. So this goes into effect beginning the 2018-19 school year. This is the first year that all districts are required to have this in place. So we'll be planning through the spring and summer, and we will have this up and running as we begin school next fall. We'll have all of our screening procedures in place, and I'm sure it will evolve over time. We may come back with some more information, but I want to let you know this is a pretty big undertaking, and this will impact a lot of practices at the elementary level. So we're starting this process now, and I'm sure we'll come back with some further information as we get through this. So be happy to take any questions or comments about this that you might have.
Who can do the screenings that will be done?
Classroom teachers will be able to do the screenings, yes. No. We hoped that one of the tools that we use now within the district, I met with Laura Brown to tap her expertise about screening. They do a lot, some in the early childhood realm, and some of the tools that we thought maybe would be really good. I called the company. They were really not willing to stand behind their product as a valid and reliable measure for dyslexia. It measures other things, but we thought it really fit well. But that won't be an option, so we'll be looking for something else.
And the continuing education is for every teacher regardless of the
I want to be sure I clarify, the way the DESE guidance is written, it simply says 2 hours of instruction for every teacher. I'm wondering myself about what are the requirements for high school math or high school PE or high school science teachers. I'm betting that there is some type of requirement that everyone goes through something. But the language is a little vague. I don't know if it truly means every teacher. That's how I'm kind of assuming it is now until I learn something different. I think some of the training will be available through DESE online videos. That will be, but 2 hours, a 2 hour video is not a small
We'll have to
ask.
abide by whatever they're telling us to abide by, but if we can't, it seems to be more efficient to have 4 hours for the teachers in ELA and none for a gym teacher.
Right. I think as we get in, I think those will be questions that a lot of school districts are asking, and they'll hopefully provide some clarifying statements about that as we go. So the DESE guidance just came out within the last 2 weeks. So. Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.